The St. Tammany Parish Planning Commission meeting of August the 13th. And before we get into the regular stuff, I'd like to introduce our new commissioner, Tom Seeger, who's replacing Martha. And he's not going to be able to really participate in anything yet because he hadn't gone through all the stuff he's got to go through to become a full-fledged commissioner. So we'll let you participate by watching, and next month you'll be full bore. All right, will clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Lauren?
Here.
Ms. Parker?
Here.
Mr. Richard?
Here.
Mr. Willie?
Here.
Mr. Doherty?
Here.
Mr. Baggert?
Here.
Mr. Fitzmaurice?
Here.
Mr. Crawford?
Here.
Mr. Drum?
Physically, yes.
Mr. Randolph?
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, public announcements, phones and pagers, please silence those. If you have an appeal, we have appeal cards over here on the railing to my right. Fill one out and turn it in. Speaker cards are over there as well, so if you wish to speak on an item, please get a speaker card and fill it out and turn it in to some of our staff. Each item, public will have 10 minutes on each side and a 5-minute rebuttal. And after your case is heard, if you wish to leave, please do so. If you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome to. Please rise for the invocation by Commissioner Randolph and the pledge by Commissioner Richard.
Gracious Father, once again we come to you as humble as we know how, but with thanksgiving and praise in our hearts, recognizing all the blessings you bestowed in our lives. We thank you for blessing us this day with your grace and mercy. Lord, we ask that you continue to bless our families, our homes, this parish, our government, our employees of this parish, Lord, and Lord, all of the citizens that we represent, continue to bless this commission and all that we do. And Lord, we ask that you continue to be with and bless all of our military personnel, veterans, law enforcement officers, firefighters, and medical personnel. It's in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, in your packet, you had the minutes from last month's meeting. Are there any corrections that need to be made to the minutes? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to approve. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve. Commissioner Randolph. Second by Commissioner Randolph. Please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Public hearings, request for postponement. Staff, do we have any postponements?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We have a request on page 2, 2019-1561 MSP, and someone is here representing the owner to address the commission.
Okay. Is that the only one?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let me read this into the record. You said it was 1561, Helen?
Correct.
Okay, 2019-1561 MSP, a minor subdivision of parcels J4A, G1A, and K into parcels J4A1, G1A1, K1, K2, and K3, owners of Marina Boshin, LLC, Jared Rickey, Surveyors Land Surveying Incorporated. This is in Honorable Mike Loreno's district, property located at the end of Marina Boulevard, Mandeville, Louisiana, Ward 4, District 4. Yes, sir. Please state your name and address.
Jared Rickey, 17942 Painters Row, Covington, Louisiana, with Marina Beauchene LLC. We still have some issues we're working through with engineering and the planning department, so we'd like to table this for the next meeting.
Okay. All right. I need Commissioner Richard.
I move to table this for 1 month to the next meeting.
Postpone for 1
Postpone,
month.
excuse me.
Commissioner Willie? Second by Commissioner Willie. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, back over on page 1, entering the Tammany Trace. Entering the Tammany Trace, construction and drainage improvements for Bellevue Estates subdivision, developer owners H&I Investments LLC, engineers Kelly McHugh and Associates, Parish Council District Honorable Jake Grovey. General location, the property is located on the south side of Hoffman Road, east of Louisiana Highway 59, Abita Springs, Ward 4, District 7. Staff?
Okay. The petitioner is requesting to enter the Tammany Trace for the purpose of construction and drainage modifications in conjunction with the development of the Bellevue Estates subdivision. The drainage modifications proposed in this request include the following. The permanent removal of an approximate 20-foot by 80-foot section of trace buffer screen needed to install the 36-inch subsurface drainage pipe, and the lowering of the invert of the existing ditch an average of half a foot, 1 foot max, using a backhoe bucket with the existing side slopes of the ditch to remain. And the staffs, we've met with them a couple of times. They've given us about 3 different revisions, and I think we have something we can work with here. And we recommended the approval subject to the comments listed below, the most important of which is that no trees are to be cleared on the 140-foot portion, with exception of that area need for the 36-inch drainage pipe, and that the applicant use a backhoe to lower the invert of the existing ditch. That way we're going to limit the disturbed area to a maximum of 2 foot wide on the trace, and the existing side slopes of the ditch shall remain.
Okay. Mr. Maroon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of H&I Investments. As Mr. Cleveland mentioned, this request is really part and parcel of the preliminary review that you have later on in your agenda for Bellevue Estates. Currently, much of the property that consists of Bellevue Estates already drains toward the trace. And as I have mentioned before, in some of my appearances before you on Bellevue, the trace acts as a bit of a dam, being that it's raised in this area from the old railroad bed. In order to properly deal with the drainage from this site and to meet the requirements of the parish to achieve the 25% reduction in runoff, it's necessary for us to access the ditch that is already on the trace, to improve that ditch slightly so that the water flows properly. We have met with our engineer, Mr. McHugh, and the developers and the contractor have met with staff and have gone through in great detail all of the facts and circumstances that are needed to perform this work. The list that you see on page 2, items 1 through 10, I believe really came out of that meeting, and we are in full accord with all of those items and will comply with all of those items. We also understand, in talking with Mr. Terry Hand earlier today, that it is necessary for us to execute a hold harmless and indemnity agreement with regards to entering the trace. We're happy to do that. We understand, and we'll be willing to do that upon the appropriate time if, in fact, approval is granted. But with that being said, the ditch is there. The water is currently draining in that area. The ditch simply needs to be improved ever so slightly, as set forth in the staff comments and on our plans, to properly accommodate the water to move it to the south where it's going currently. So we would respectfully request your approval to enter the trace for these limited purposes, but subject to all of the comments and requirements that are set forth in your staff report. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners might have at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Morone. Does anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of this? Anyone opposed to this? You'd like to speak? Please come to the microphone, state your name and address.
My name is Tony Zanka, 320 Alderman Lane. I'm not against the development. Let's get that out the way right quick. My only concern, and I think he addressed it, but I think it's still up in the air, is the traffic situation leading out to Hoffman. You have 80 houses, I believe, all going out on Hoffman Road. So we live in Autumn Wind. We travel Hoffman a lot. I'm not going to get into how dangerous it is to cross 59. You could do it anywhere down 59. My concern is the amount of traffic that's going to come out of there, 80 more houses on one road. I would have thought at the beginning that this would have 2 exits, but it doesn't. It seems like, and I apologize, I think he addressed that it's going to be addressed at a later date, approved at a later
It'll
date
be
with a better plan.
addressed when we get to the planning part of the subdivision. This is just entering the trace right here.
So you're saying I'm early?
You're early.
Well, can I rescind anything while I'm here? No, I'm joking.
Pardon?
No, thank you. I'm fine. Okay.
We'll see you coming next time.
In that case, never mind. Have a nice day.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak against? Seeing no one, we'll bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Baggert.
Yeah, I'll move for approval, subject to staff comments.
Motion by Mr. Baggert to approve per the staff comments. Commissioner Lauren.
Mr. Morone?
Yes, sir.
Will this be a culvert that goes under the trace?
No, there is.
Or a ditch that goes across the trace?
It does not. There is currently a ditch that parallels the trace that runs south. And so that ditch will remain, but it will be improved slightly to have better flow for the water.
So
But
it
we
does-
will not be crossing the trace.
It does not cross the trace?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. In that case, I'll second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Lauren. Commissioner Randolph.
Paul,
Yes.
the hold harmless, will that be a part of this project as well?
Yes, the hold harmless and indemnity agreement is a requirement of the parish. Anytime you're entering into a right-of-way, or in this case, into the trace to perform work on public property, it's a standard protocol. Typically, we see it in the entering the right-of-way, because there's more of that than entering the trace, but the same applies. And I just wanted to be clear, after talking to Mr. Hand, that we were aware of that and would comply with that requirement.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Morone, I've got a question on the buffer
Yes.
that's going to be removed. Is there going to be some type of a buffer put back?
The trace in this location is, I believe it's about 200 feet wide. And so I believe that's correct. I'm looking at the plans here. Yes, I believe it's about 200 feet wide. The only area that we will be removing any trees is the 20 by 80 foot section. And those trees have to be removed because in that area, and working with staff, they wanted to see subsurface piping in there. So we've got to get the trees to get the subsurface in. Since it's only 20 feet wide, we would not want to plant on top of the pipe. So there wasn't any plan for any additional plantings on that area, other than what would grow naturally as a replacement plants.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Entering the parish right-of-way on the southern part of LaSalle Street for the loading area associated with the redevelopment of Kmart. Petitioner is Viola Properties LLC. The architect is Piazza Architect Planning, APC. This is in Riker Toledano's district. Property is a portion of LaSalle Street west of Ashbury Drive, east of North Causeway Boulevard, Ward 4, District 5. Staff?
Yes, sir. This is a request into the parish right-of-way, specifically the southern portion of the right-of-way of LaSalle Street, for creating a loading area associated with the redevelopment of the Kmart facility there in Mandeville.
All right. Mr. Morone?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Morone again, this time on behalf of the petitioner for entering the right-of-way of LaSalle Street. As Mr. Doherty noted, this property is the existing old Kmart site, which, as many of you know, has been vacant for probably about 2 years. My clients have that site under contract and are endeavoring to redevelop the site. The site is actually in the city of Mandeville, and we have been through a number of public hearings at the city of Mandeville with a redevelopment plan, and we've received the approvals from them. The reason we're here tonight is because that original Kmart building, of course, was a single-tenant building. It is not going to be, it cannot be redeveloped feasibly as a single-tenant building. It will have to be a multi-tenant building. So the plan is that some of the existing building will be torn down. Some of it will remain and will be redeveloped and repurposed. But when converting from a single-tenant building to a multi-tenant building, the need to provide service access from the rear becomes necessary. Those of you who are familiar with the old Kmart will know that there was a service access that was on the west side of the building. When we have multiple tenants across this building, they can't all be serviced from the west side. We have to get into the rear. So what we're asking is the ability to enter the right-of-way for the purpose of creating this loading area and really to get vehicles, service vehicles, safely off of LaSalle Street and into the property so that it doesn't impede the flow and traffic in LaSalle Street. We'll be subsurfacing, culverting the ditch that's there now. There'll be a concrete area so that people can, that are in service vehicles can turn off of LaSalle Street, can access the rear of the property, service the areas that are needed to service in a safe manner. So that is the purpose behind our request. Again, the plan has been approved at the city of Mandeville, but we ask for your approval this evening for the sole purpose of being able to enter the LaSalle Street right-of-way to create these loading zones, which essentially is subsurfing some of the ditch that's there and providing some additional concrete area for safe ingress and egress. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. With regards to the resolution that is before you this evening, we've reviewed that, my client has reviewed that, and we will comply with each of the requirements set forth therein. So thank you for your consideration this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak either for or against? I see no one raising hands or coming forward. I'm going to close the floor to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Lloyd.
Mr. Morone, just a couple of quick questions for my clarification, if you
Yes.
would, please. Along the LaSalle Street side, right now, there's a good many very, I don't know how prosperous they are, but they're busy. Because down at the very corner on the, I guess, the north end is the St. Tammany Parish Library.
Okay. On the north end, okay.
Okay. Will this in any way affect any of those businesses?
No, this should not affect any business along LaSalle Street. It will only allow people safer and more efficient ingress and egress to service the rear of this building. But otherwise, it should have no negative impact whatsoever on the people along LaSalle.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Randolph.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve. Commissioner Crawford.
Yes, sir.
One more question. The loading areas, is this intended to be accessed from the side, trucks to pull in and access this from the side, or are they backing up to these areas?
I'm not quite sure I understand when you say from the side.
Parallel.
Oh, parallel.
I see they have quite a bit of
Yes.
length, 80 feet, 125 feet, it looks like.
Yes.
Is that the intention?
Yes, it's parallel. I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay,
So,
okay.
correct.
That was my only question.
Yes.
But now, the ones, let me get my glasses readjusted here. The ones that are to the left of where it's parallel, those trucks will be backing in. At that point, it will not be a parallel unload on those, right?
Yeah, so
Where you've got the smaller,
yeah. So the one to the east, the larger one, will clearly be parallel. That will be parallel. The other, I'll look to my client, but I believe it will primarily be parallel, though there could be some backing in on the smaller one.
if it's a smaller truck,
Yeah.
they can certainly back in, but the larger trucks will have to parallel as well. But if you parallel, and it's, 5-6 foot off the ground, how are they gonna unload?
Well, they'll either have to have a lift, they'll either have to have a lift on that truck, since they won't be able to back into a docking bay, so to speak. And really, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about most likely, on the larger one, you will have larger trucks. On the smaller area, you're likely to have smaller trucks. I will tell you that the larger area is designed for a specific tenant with a specific use.
Okay.
That's the reason it's designed in that manner.
That's fine,
So,
that's fine.
whereas the smaller area would be more general tenants that would have smaller delivery vehicles as opposed to larger.
Okay, and there's a restaurant, and I can't read what restaurant, or even if it's named on here, but there's gonna be a dumpster right there behind it. And I guess I'm a little bit concerned about, he's gonna come in off of LaSalle Street, it looks like, in order
That's-
to get to the dumpster.
That's correct.
So he's gonna wander around the parking lot to get out till he gets over here where he can go out on 190, is that right?
So if the dumpster is at the rear of the building there near the larger area that we talked about, they would be able to come in, service the dumpster from LaSalle, and then go back to LaSalle. And then they could take LaSalle either down to the service road or to Asbury to the east. Or they could come back through the parking lot if necessary, but they would have two other routes that they could take.
So you're indicating that your thought is that he's gonna back up and basically turn around. I don't know if that's gonna be that feasible or not. That just, those trucks are not that agile in turning around if it's the regular 2 or 3 axle trucks.
Right. I believe there's a dumpster there now, in that location, I believe. But we believe with this site plan that there's adequate room for them to get in and get out. In fact, there is room for a larger truck to pull in and come out of there.
Okay, but, you got a lot of curbs in there, and those big garbage trucks, they like to run over curbs and break them all up, so it'll be,
Excuse me, Chair, are we talking about the dumpster in the center of this, behind the out parcel, or we're talking about the dumpsters in the rear of the large center?
no, it's just on the out parcel.
Oh, excuse me, on the out parcel. Okay, I thought you were talking about the one at the rear.
No.
Yes, so there is one located at the rear of the out parcel, which the hope is that there will be a restaurant on that out parcel. But yes, we believe that there is more than adequate area to access that location, and then either to go back out to LaSalle Street or to come through the parking lot out to 190. We believe there's adequate drive lane width to accommodate those trucks.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure we understand that this is in the city of Mandeville. Mandeville has approved this particular plan. And obviously, I'm going to assume they spent a whole lot more time on it than we're going to spend on it right now. So all we're being asked for this evening is to enter the right-of-way. And I'm going to make a motion to approve that request.
I think we've already got a motion, right? Yeah, we've already got a motion in a second. So,
That's it?
we've already got a motion in a
Okay,
second.
so I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry, a second.
Commissioner Fitzmaurice. I'm good, I was in the second. Okay. All right, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Pardon? Legal counsel's telling me we had two folks that raised their hand to speak on this. I didn't see you. Does someone wish to speak on this? Okay, please come to the microphone and state your name and address.
I'm Kent Helwig at 26077 Little Fawn in Lacombe, and I regularly eat breakfast at Cafe Rainey in that parking lot. So I just wanted to say that if they drive through the parking lot, it's already kind of broken up a little bit, and I really wouldn't like to see a big truck. That's all. That's all I want to say. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this? All right, we've got a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Revocation review. REV 19-05-001. The revocation of a portion of Edna Street and 7th Street located south of Sunshine Avenue and east of Zula Street in the town of Malleyville subdivision south of Covington, Louisiana. Ward 3, District 2. The applicant is Zulu Properties LLC, and this is in Honorable David Fitzgerald's district. Staff?
Okay. And the applicant is proposing to revoke that a portion of North Street and Edna Street in order to assimilate the property into the adjacent property in the near future. The staff believes that the proposal is consistent with the relative to the Louisiana revised statutes governing the revocation of mobile property. And we have no objections to it. We just have one comment, and this is one of the 911 people who made the comment to change all 7th Street references on the survey to reflect North 7th Street. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Morone again, this time on behalf of Zula Street Properties LLC. We would respectfully request your concurrence with the staff's recommendation, or the staff's no objection to the revocation of these two unopened right-of-ways in the old Malleyville subdivision. 7th and Edna Street are old platted streets, have never been constructed, and respectfully are streets to nowhere at this point. My client owns or controls the property on all sides of them, and his intention is to simply, if revoked, acquire these streets, assimilate them into his property so that his property is not disjointed. I would also point out to you that with regards to Edna Street, the Edna Street right-of-way immediately to the south of this stretch that we're asking to revoke has already been revoked. It was done so several years ago, so Edna Street could not go any further, and so it's little of no value as a public right-of-way anymore. So we would respectfully request your approval of our request to revoke both this portion of Edna Street and 7th Street as set forth on Mr. Bono's plat, which is attached in your packet. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners might have.
Thank you, Mr. Morone.
Thank you.
All right, we have anyone in the audience that wishes to speak for or against this revocation? I'm not seeing anyone, so I'm gonna close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Baggett.
I'll move on to revocation.
Motion by Mr. Baggett to approve the revocation. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Paul, I got one question, and it has to do with the word near, adjacent property in the near future. What are we talking about? I mean, it's somewhere in here, I read that it was kind of like 2 years, but I think it was in this one.
Let's see, where it says, the applicant is proposing to revoke a portion of 7th and Edna in order to assimilate the property into the adjacent property in the near future.
Yeah.
Near there would mean just as soon as we possibly can. The revocation process from here is painfully slow. It will probably take, by the time we go to the council, then we have to post the money for the appraisal. The appraisal has to be done. It has to come in. Then it's sent to us. Then if we have no objection, then we let the staff know. Then the documents are drafted for the acquisition of the property. That is probably, it's about another 4 or 5 month process.
So we're not looking at 2 or 3 years or anything?
No. It takes a while, but not near that long. Probably 4 months, give or take a little bit.
Okay, all right, thank you, Paul.
Yes.
Any of the commissioners have any further comments? We got a motion and a second, right? Okay, please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, we got another revocation, REV 19-07-002. The revocation of a portion of H Street located south of 13th Street and north of 14th Street between Square 135 and Square 134 of the town of Alexisville subdivision, south of Covington, Ward 3, District 2. The applicant is Martin Development LLC, and this is in Honorable David Fitzgerald's district. Staff?
Okay, the applicant is proposing to revoke the portion between Square 135 and 134 in order to assimilate the property into the 2 adjacent properties that they own. The staff believes that the proposal is consistent with the Louisiana revised statutes and has no objections.
Thank you. Mr. Shane?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good evening. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm at P.O. Box 1810 in Covington. I represent Martin Development LLC, which is the petitioner in this matter. We, of course, appreciate staff's recommendation that you recommend a revocation of this portion of the street. As you can see on the plat, my client owns squares 135 and 134. Upon being successful with the revocation process, we will assimilate that parcel or re-subdivide it with squares 135 and 134, thereby making it one parcel, if you will. There are other plans to develop this property that we'll be sharing with you at a later date as it relates to land use and also access. But this is the first step. I'm happy to say that my client has already put up the deposit for the revocation appraisal, and we have initiated the appraisal process, not being presumptive that you would recommend revocation, but so to shorten the time frame in the event you do. So we would hope to be back to you maybe before Mr. Morone with the re-subdivision.
Maybe
at a
get 3
later
months
date.
in, huh?
He's talking about that. I was wondering if I'd live long enough to see his get done, and then I figured I better get mine done before then. So the only thing I would say, and I've had this discussion with Mr. Cleland, with regard to the one staff comment about removing the notation of the streets, I believe that came from 911. I believe that Mr. Cleland and I agree that that staff comment may be unnecessary or erroneous. And my surveyor tells me that we need to leave the reference to those two street designations just for directional purposes. It's got nothing to do with the portion of the right-of-way that's being revoked. It's simply the street that is on the west side of Square 135 and the east side of Square 134. So we'd like to leave those designations on the plat.
And the staff has no objection to that.
Okay,
Thank you, sir.
all right. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Baggett.
I'll move on the revocation as amended.
Thank you. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Minor subdivision review. This is 2019-1531-MSP. A minor subdivision of parcel A into parcels A1 and A2. Owner is Lloyd E. and Stacy Smith Jr. Surveyor J.V. Burke and Associates. Parish Council District, Honorable Jake Groby. General location, the property is located on the west side of Ardon Rupert Road, north of Pontchartrain Drive, Lacombe, Louisiana. Ward 7, District 7. Staff?
The applicant is requesting to create two parcels of land from a 20-acre parcel. The minor subdivision request requires a public hearing since parcel A was a part of a minor subdivision approval in August 2015. Staff has no objection to the request, subject to the 3 comments listed on the staff report.
Thank you. Kent Helwig? Does Kent Helwig wish to?
I'm Kent Helwig, 26077 Little Fawn in Lacombe. And I just wanted to say, I found out what was going on this evening, but when we saw that there was 20 acres portioned off, I became concerned because we do have a drainage and a flooding problem in our neighborhood. And our newest neighbor just moved in, and he said that he bought the house based on one of his friends telling him that our area does not flood, and he found out right afterwards that it pretty much does. My house is raised for a reason after Katrina because we got wiped out from flooding, but I just want to say that I don't have any objection to the subdividing of the property if there's only going to be 2 new houses built, but that we already do have a flooding problem. And if the property was resold or something, you know, and we were going to break it down a lot more and put a whole bunch of houses, I don't know what to do, so I'll be in contact with y'all about how to make a request or something to get that investigated. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir. You wanted to speak?
I'm Lloyd Smith. I just thought I had to come up.
Okay. All right. Do you have any comments? Pardon?
No, sir.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Yes, sir. Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion carries.
Ma'am, on your flooding issue, I would suggest that you get a hold of Councilman Groby and discuss it with him, and he can get Public Works and Engineering to come out and see if there's any block drainage or anything. Okay? All right, next item up is 2019-1551 MSP, minor subdivision of tracks B into track B1, B2, and B3. Owners are Enid Shawn Poole Goring, surveyors Land Survey Incorporated. Parish Council District Representative is Honorable James Thompson. General location, the property is located on the north side of Champaign Street and west side of Columbia Street, and on the south side of Poole Drive, Covington, Louisiana, Ward 3, District 3. Staff?
The applicant is requesting to create 3 parcels from a 32.07 acre parcel. The minor subdivision request requires a public hearing since parcel B was part of a minor subdivision approved in January 2009. And the proposed 3 parcels meet the minimum requirements. Staff does not have any objection to the request, subject to the 3 criteria listed on the staff comment, on the staff report.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. State your name and address. I don't have a card for you.
Oh, sorry. Enid
We
Poole.
can pull the mic down if you need to.
Enid Poole.
Okay?
I've got to do a property swap because when the workforce building was built, they bought an acre, but they didn't build on the acre they bought, they built on our property. And we just discovered that, so we had to parcel out another acre that their building is on, so we can swap acres.
Okay.
Thank you, Jack.
All right, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wish to speak for or against on this item? Seeing none, I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
I make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Commissioner Randolph.
Yes, I'd like to know how that happened. How,
So would I. I would, and I only knew about it when Matt Faust called me from the assessor's office to tell me that I had a building on my property that I was not aware of. And so when we looked at it, we figured it out. They had bought an acre and then built behind their acre, or I'd say further west of their acre. And we've been working on this for a year to get this done.
did you perhaps have to communicate or get with the Covington Council as well?
No, because this is,
So it's
in the
not
parish.
in the city?
Right.
Wow. I second. I second it.
Second by Commissioner Randolph. All right, any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 2019-1561, that was postponed. Next one's 2019-1567 MSP. A minor subdivision of 398.672 acres into parcels 2A and 2B. Owners of St. Tammany Parish Government, surveyors Kelly J. McHugh and Associates, Parish Council District Honorable Jake Groby. General location, this property is on the north side of US Highway 190, west of Pelican Drive, Ward 4, District 7. Staff?
The applicant is requesting to create 2 parcels from a 398.68 acre parcel. The minor subdivision request requires a public hearing since parcel 2A does not have public road frontage, is being accessed via a 20-foot servitude of passage, and parcel 2 was previously part of a minor subdivision approved in May of 2017. The 2 proposed parcels meet the minimum requirements. Staff doesn't have any objection to the request, subject to the 20-foot servitude of passage be relocated. As you can see, it is shown as going through another parcel, which is not part of the minor subdivision. So it will have to be relocated, and according to recent conversation that I just had, it will be relocated to have a direct access to Highway 190, so no waiver will be required.
All right, thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to speak on this item, either for or against? I'll close the item to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This particular item before us today involves a sale of this property to Recreation District Number 1, which I sit on as a commissioner. So I just wanted to let this body know that I'm abstaining from participation and voting. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lauren.
Thank you. With the change in the driveway, getting that resolved, I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Lauren to approve. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion carries.
You had one abstention, right? And Todd abstained. All right. You gonna get Todd? Re-subdivision review. 2019-1542-MRP, parcel designated as lots 49, 50, 51, and 52, Glendale Heights Farms, in square 19 and 20. First subdivision of Glendale Heights into parcels 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D, and the remainder of square 19 and 20. Owners are PTP Properties LLC, Dot Scott Prieto, Carrie Dean Prieto, Seagrave, James Kent Jackson, and Janet Ruth Jackson. Surveyors John Cummings and Associates. This is in Honorable Maureen O'Brien's district. The property is located on the southwest corner of Lonesome Road and Louisiana 59, Mandeville, Ward 4, District 10. Staff?
The owner is requesting to re-subdivide 6 lots into 6 sites. The reason for the public hearing is that the proposal involved the creation or the adjustment of more than 5 lots, and to also allow for the remainder of square 19 and 20 to be created without meeting the minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet and the minimum lot width of 80 feet under the MD2 Medical Clinic District. Staff does not have any objection to the request, subject to the following: a waiver of the minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet and the minimum lot width of 80 feet under the MD2 Medical Clinic District for the remainder of square 19 and 20. And the reason why staff support this request for variance is because if you see in number 4, the remainder of square 19 and 20 will be combined with the parcels to the south. So the parcels to the south are currently being subject to the approval of a revocation of Louisa Street and Rusella Avenue. Also, the survey must be amended to include a signature line for the chairman, and the future development taking place on the site will be required to connect to available central water and sewer.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, for the record, Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm, P.O. Box 1810 in Covington, 70434. I represent the Prieto and Jackson families that are the owners and petitioners in this matter. I think the staff report lays the facts out for you very clearly. We're in full accord with all of the staff comments, and in particular, we recognize that at one point in time upon this re-subdivision that the remainder of squares 19 and 20 are deficient in size, but as soon as the revocations are presumably approved, and the matter is scheduled to be on your docket next month, that will be the property that abuts these 2 lots to the south. They will be re-subdivided with the remainder of square 19 and 20 so that in fact those are not only legal lots of record, but they will be conforming to the MD2 requirements. So we would appreciate your grant of re-subdivision for the track as outlined.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against on this item? Seeing none, I will close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Yes, sir, I'd like the motion, make a motion to approve this with the waiver.
Motion by Commissioner Fitzmaurice to approve with the waiver. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
I'll second.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Jeff, you can keep your seat, but didn't we have something on one of these corners at 59 and Lonesome Road where they were putting a large service station not too long ago?
Yes, sir. You've had two zoning cases in this area. I handled the first case, which was at the southwest corner, a commercial zoning for a...
But it was not this property.
Well, but the parcel that abuts it was owned by Mr. Marone 6 to 8 months ago for an MD2 facility, and that MD2 facility is still planned to be at that location as well. So we're now doing some cleanup work with, quite frankly, some right-of-ways that we didn't know existed. They're not physically there, but they were there on paper, so we need to re-subdivide and revoke in order to get back to square one.
Okay. Thank you for straightening me out on that, Jeff. All right, we got a motion and a second on this item. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, the next item is re-subdivision 2019-1555-MRP. Excuse me. Parcels designated as lots 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35 to be re-subdivided to create lots 28A, 29A, 30A, 31A, 31B, 32A, 32B, 33A, 34A, and 35A, Phase 1B, the Preserve at River Chase subdivision. The owners are the Preserve at River Chase LLC. The surveyor is SLD Engineering and Surveying LLC, Jeffrey D. Diamond. This is in Honorable Marty Dean's district. Property located on the south, east, and west sides of Bradbury Place and on the north side of Continental Drive, Covington, Ward 1, District 1. Staff?
The owner is requesting to re-subdivide 8 lots into 10 buildable residential lots. The reason for the public hearing requirements is that the proposal involve the creation or the adjustment of more than 5 lots. Staff has no objection to the request for re-subdivision, subject to the following comment. As per the original approved subdivision plat, sent water and sewer shall be provided to the additional number of lots.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against on this? Pardon? Mr. Morone.
Mr. Chairman, Paul Marone on behalf of the Preserve at River Chase LLC. I represent the Preserve at River Chase. Have not been involved in this request other than a brief conversation with my client. I understood that the surveyor was going to be here in case there were any questions.
And he is.
Oh, he is. Okay. I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you. That probably cost me $500. Worth it, though, worth it.
Please state your name and address.
My name is Jeff Diamond, SLD Engineering and Surveying, 323 Florida Street, Baton Rouge.
Okay. Do you have anything other than what we see here in the staff report?
No, sir, it's pretty straightforward. It's just a simple subdivision of 8 lots into 10 lots
Okay.
in an
Thank you.
existing subdivision.
Okay. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak for or against on this item? I'll close it to the public, bring it back to the commission. Do we have anyone that wishes to speak on this? Commissioner Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at the, it went from 8 to 10 lots, is that correct?
Correct.
That's the only change.
That's the only change.
And am I looking at 35-foot lots?
Yes. This subdivision was originally approved for 35-foot lots. There are several others in the subdivision.
Okay, so this was a PUD that we approved, and now we're adding 2 more lots to the,
We're actually adding one more lot. The subdivision was built out one lot short of the approved PUD amount, and so we're actually adding one. We're adding two lots, but only one to the PUD.
thank you.
Correct.
Commissioner Baggett.
I'm sorry, answer my question.
Commissioner Randolph.
Mr. Jeff,
Yes.
right? These lots, you said, are already lots of record,
Correct.
and we had already approved, Mr. Richard had already not only alluded, but stated that this is a PUD that we had already approved, but we're only adding one more lot, not two?
Correct. Well, it's a little bit convoluted. The PUD allowed for a certain number of lots. I think that number was 77. 76 were constructed. And so this would bring the total to 79, or 78 rather.
Okay.
So we're creating 2 additional lots here, but only one above the PUD, which is a minor adjustment.
Okay.
Right.
And one other question, what size building would fit on those size lots?
I mean, I guess, normal residential structure, a couple thousand square feet.
Okay.
There are several existing home sites in this subdivision on lots of that size now. It's not an uncommon size for a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have a motion or something? All right, Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Okay, motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion carries.
We had 2 against, okay. All right, we have no petitions or waivers request. We have no dormant subdivision review, tentative subdivision review. We don't have any. Preliminary subdivision review. 2019-1494-PP, Bellevue Estates, developer, owner is H&I Investments LLC. The engineer is Kelly McHugh and Associates. Parish Council District Representative Honorable Jake Groby. General location, the property is located on the south side of Hoffman Road, east of Louisiana Highway 59, Abita Springs, Ward 4, District 7. Staff?
Yes, sir. This project was postponed for 1 month at the June 11th, 2019 and the July 9th, 2019 meetings. The preliminary plans and hydrologic study have been reviewed by this office, and an inspection was made of the site on May 30th, 2019. It is recommended that preliminary submittal be approved, subject to the following comments. 1, approval for crossing the gas line right-of-way with a roadway has not been received from the gas line company. 2, approval from Gravity Drainage District Number 5 is required. 3, the revised North Pond outfall location needs to be shown as a drainage servitude on the preliminary plat. 4, proposed elevations and culvert modifications to the western trace ditch conflict between the subdivision plans and the enter the trace right-of-way plans. Revise both plan sets to eliminate conflicts. 5, provide an invert elevation for the proposed North Pond outfall tie-in to the Hoffman Road roadside ditch. 6, the proposed roadside ditch improvements and culvert elevations along the south side of Hoffman Road need to be adjusted to ensure that positive flow will be established from the subdivision entrance culvert to the trace right-of-way, including the cross culvert for the western ditch of the Tammany Trace. 7, the North Pond weir detail bottom elevation needs to be revised to match the elevation shown on the drainage plan. 8, add dimensions of material of existing cross culvert to the west of the North Pond outfall. 9, provide written verification from Tammany Utilities that water and sewer capacity is available for this development through the existing water and sewer systems. 10, provide written verification from Tammany Utilities that the existing 8-inch line and sewer lift station can accept the additional capacity from the 4-inch sewer force main. 11, a letter of no objection from St. Tammany Parish and Louisiana Department of Hospitals approval are required. 12, the pond top elevation in the south pond summary needs to be revised to 32.60 feet as shown on the drainage plan. 13, the pond bottom elevation in the north pond summary needs to be revised at 28.35 feet as shown on the drainage plan. 14, the north pond outfall invert shown in the summary pond for pond 6P north pond needs to be revised to 28.10 feet. A funded maintenance obligation, the amount of $10,000 is required in accordance with St. Tammany Parish Code of Ordinances, Section 125, to ensure the repair of any damage to parish roads resulting from construction in connection with the subdivision. Mandatory developmental fees will be required at final submittal since no public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Paul Morone on behalf of H&I Investments with regards to Bellevue Estates. Of the list that Mr. Tissue just mentioned, I'd like to touch on what I would characterize as the more significant items. Many of the items listed are plat changes or requirements with regards to certain elevations or typos in the report. Mr. McHugh and his staff have looked at those and are comfortable with all of those. They can make those requirements, those required changes in accordance with what Mr. Tissue had mentioned. The other items that I'd like to talk about, first, item number 1 under general comments, the approval of the right-of-way, the gas line right-of-way, roadway. We have been in contact with the gas company since March. It has taken us since March until mid-July to get them to respond and focus and actually pay attention to our request. But they have done that now. We have good dialogue with them finally. We were told that the process would take 3 to 4 weeks. We are in week 5, but we are hearing back from them. They have reviewed it. They are looking at it. It's going through different channels. But we expect now that we will have that approval in the very near future. I was concerned about that because of the lack of communication, but I'm pleased to tell you that that has now changed and it is moving along, and we are confident that we will get the letter. We understand that we must get the letter before any work can commence. With regards to Gravity Drainage District number 5, plans were submitted to Mr. Thibodeau, who is the review engineer for the Gravity Drainage District. He has reviewed those plans. He responded back to Mr. McHugh with some comments and questions, and we have responded to those. So we are simply waiting on Mr. Thibodeau now for one more response based on our answers to his questions. Again, we hoped to have that for this evening, but we think that will be coming in short order. With regards to the water and sewer plans, and item 9 regarding written verification from Tammany Utilities that the water and sewer capacity is available for the development, Mr. McHugh has performed the calculations necessary to evidence that there is capacity there. He has submitted those calculations to Tammany Utilities for their review, comment, and what we believe will be approval. Likewise, with regards to item 10 and the existing 8-inch line in the sewer lift station and their ability to accept the additional capacity from the 4-inch sewer force main. That information and those calculations have been performed by Mr. McHugh and provided to Tammany Utilities. Finally, we do understand that we will need a letter of no objection from St. Tammany Parish and from the LDH. The plans have been submitted, and we await those approvals. So we are comfortable and confident that all of the changes to the plats that are noted here can be performed, and that the third-party approvals, whether it be from the gas company, the Gravity Drainage District, or Tammany Utilities, are well within reach, and we hope to have those in a very short period of time. With that being said, we would respectfully request your approval of preliminary in accordance with the staff's recommendation, but subject to their comments, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time that any of the commissioners might have.
Thank you, Mr. Morone.
Thank you.
Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against on this item? Seeing no one come forward, I will close close the floor to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Randolph. We have a motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
Second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion from the commission? Please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, 2019-1558-PP. This is Lakeshore Villages Phase 7, and the developer owners, D.R. Horton Incorporated, Gulf Coast. Engineer surveyors, Duplantis Design Group, PC Acadia Land Surveying LLC. Parish Council District Representatives, Honorable Michelle Blanchard. General location, the property is located north of Oak Harbor Boulevard, west of Louisiana Highway 433, east of I-10, Slidell, Ward 9, District 13. Mr. Shane. Staff.
Yeah, mine. The preliminary plans and hydrologic study have been reviewed by this office, and an inspection was made of the site on July 31st, 2019. It is recommended that preliminary submittal be approved, subject to the following. 1, an updated TIA, including Phase 7 of this development, must be submitted and approved by St. Tammany Parish and the LADOTD. 2, the address for Lot 1585 shall be 282 Lakeshore Village South in lieu of 281 Lakeshore Village South. 3, the addresses for lots 1580 through 1582 need to be revised to be shown fronting Lakeshore Village South, since these lots will be addressed off Lakeshore Village South. 4, provide additional speed limit signs on Palm Landing Road and Wake Reserve Road. 5, a letter of no objection from St. Tammany Parish and LDH approval is required for this development. 6, provide written approval from Oak Harbor East Utilities for the proposed water and sewer plans. 7, provide written verification from Oak Harbor East Utilities that the existing water and sewer systems this development is connecting to have sufficient capacity. No funded maintenance obligation is required since this is a community development district owned and maintained subdivision. No mandatory development fee is required since a public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm in Covington, P.O. Box 1810. I represent D.R. Horton, Inc., Gulf Coast. We're in full accord with staff comments and ask that you grant preliminary subdivision approval. We intend to perform each and every item as staff has suggested. If any of you have any questions or concerns about any of those comments, I'll be glad to address them at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against this item? I'll close it to the public, bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Fitzmaurice. Any further discussion by the commission? Please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Final subdivision review. 2019-1514-FP, Lakeshore Villages, Phase 4A, developer owner, D.R. Horton Incorporated, Gulf Coast, engineer surveyor, Duplantis Group, /PC/Acadia Land Surveying, the Parish Council District, Honorable Michelle Blanchard. Property location is located north of Oak Harbor Boulevard, west of Louisiana 433, east of I-10, Slidell, Ward 9, District 13. Staff?
Yes, sir. This project was postponed for 1 month at the July 9th, 2019 meeting. Periodic inspections were made by this office during construction, and a second final inspection was made on July 31st, 2019. The inspection disclosed that the subsurface drainage, sewer and water lines, and asphalt roadways are constructed within all areas, except at the roundabout where the final 2 inches of asphalt wearing course and other items need to be constructed. The developer is requesting that a performance obligation be established for the uncompleted work so the plats can be recorded. This process has been approved by the commission in the past, and no objection is offered by this department. If final approval is granted for this phase, a performance obligation in the amount of $131,500 will be required for a period of 6 months, covering the cost of uncompleted items, all in accordance with the letter dated July 30th, 2019 from DDG. No warranty obligation will be required this time, and it will be established upon completion of the work covered under the performance obligation. The warranty obligation required will be in the amount of 5,805 linear feet at $22 per linear foot, for a total of $127,700 for a period of 2 years. The comments are: 1, provide asphalt core test results for all roadways in this phase. 2, a permanent benchmark needs to be established within this phase and depicted on the final plat. 3, the subdivision boundary phase line needs to be revised to include the Lakeshore Village West and North Ring Road Drive roundabout area that the performance obligation is being established for. 4, provide a letter of acceptance and responsibility for the perpetual maintenance and operation of the water and sewer system from the utility provider. 5, provide a water and sewer system capacity letter verifying that the existing system has capacity to service this phase of Lakeshore Villages. No mandatory development fees are required since a public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. This subdivision is within the urban growth boundary line. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Good evening once again. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm, P.O. Box 1810 in Covington. I represent D.R. Horton, Inc., and we, of course, request final subdivision approval for Phase 4A1, subject to all staff comments. You'll remember that we agreed with staff's request that this phase be postponed last month for final because we were not close enough. At this time, I think most, if not all, of the items that you still see on the report have either been completed or will soon be completed, none of which should be problematic at all. If any of you have any questions or comments, so about any of those particular items, I'll be glad to address them.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against it on this item? I'll close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Randolph. Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve. Commissioner Lauren.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Lauren. All right, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is 2019-1560-FP. Lakeshore Villages Phase 3A3. Developer owner D.R. Horton, Gulf Coast. Engineer surveyors, Duplantis Group, PC. Acadia Land Surveying, LLC. Parish Council District Representative, Honorable Michelle Blanchard. General location, the property is located north of Oak Harbor Boulevard, west of Louisiana 433, east of I-10, Slidell, Ward 9, District 13. Staff?
Periodic inspections were made by this office during construction, and a final inspection was made on July 31st, 2019. The inspection disclosed that all the asphalt roads are constructed and all subsurface drainage is functioning. The following uncompleted items exist at the time of the final inspection and will be completed before the plats are signed. 1, provide asphalt core test results for the asphalt roadways in this phase. 2, provide utility trench backfill and bedding test results. 3, update the signature approval block on page 2 of the final plat to include signature lines for all required signatures. 4, update the street length in the general information table to show the correct total. 5, a permanent benchmark needs to be established within this phase and depicted on the final plat. 6, restrictive covenant number 6 needs to be revised to reflect this phase of Lakeshore Villages. 7, provide a letter of acceptance and responsibility for the perpetual maintenance and operation of the water and sewer system from the utility provider. 8, provide a water and sewer system capacity letter verifying the existing system has capacity to service this phase of Lakeshore Villages. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 2,722 linear feet at $22 per linear foot for a total of $59,900 for a period of 2 years. Staff recommends approval of the proposed final subdivision request subject to the developer complying with all comments and no plats to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. No mandatory development fees are required since a public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. The subdivision is within the urban growth boundary line. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. For sake of brevity, the same comments as the last case. so that if any of you have questions or comments, I'll be glad to address them, but we're in full accord with all of staff comments.
Thank you, Mr. Shane.
Yes, sir.
Anyone in the audience wish to speak for or against? I'll close it to the public, bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Yes, sir, I make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve. Commissioner Fitzmaurice.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, amendments to Chapter 125 subdivision regulations, we have none. Old business, we have none. New business, we have none. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Motion and a second to adjourn. Thank you.
Okay.